you know, people like him carry on doing lots of hard work, but, you know, they're the supporting act, and it's those principles that we need.
That week, we also learnt that the Queen had been furious when Harry and Meghan had decided to name their daughter Lilibet, a personal nickname for the Queen herself. Robert Hardman broke the news in his biography of the King called Charles III. Here he is explaining where the story came from, and afterwards we'll hear the reactions of Rebecca and Richard Eden.
Okay.
One of the things that's attracted a lot of attention is this story about the naming of the Sussex's second child, Lilibet. And at the time, some people thought that's a slightly interesting choice of name. It was obviously a unique name. It was the Queen's childhood nickname. No one else has ever been called Lilibet. And there was, soon afterwards, at the time, the Sussexes had issued a statement saying, you know, that the Queen had been supportive about this choice of name.
So that was a f***ing lie.
And then it was the BBC that reported, actually, no, the Queen wasn't asked. At which point the Sussexes reached for the legal red button and started issuing legal proceedings. And at which point the palace was not willing to endorse the Sussexes' version of events. There was a resounding silence.
What the hell?
And as a result, the legal action didn't happen. The issue really was not the naming, the choosing of the name Lilibet. I mean, the Queen is, she's put up with all sorts of things through her long life.
Fact.
That wasn't, for her, that was not the thing that caused the reaction inside the palace. What you can't ever do is you can't put words in the mouth of the Queen. You can't say, she said this, she did that, if she didn't. And that,
Are you serious?
That was where the crux of the issue was, the fact that this choice of name that had clearly been presented as a fait accompli, and perhaps she did say, oh, that's very nice, or oh, how interesting, or she'd often say how interesting, actually, to things. You know, that's as maybe, but it's when she was being expected and the palace were expected to say that this had happened and it hadn't happened. That's
wait for it.
What got her upset.
Oh, Richard, this was quite the revelation, wasn't it?
It really was, and this for me has, it really, in a way, it's sort of changed our view of many people of Queen Elizabeth, because
Hey y'all, come look at this.
Because lots of people sort of saw her as a sort of sweet old grandma, and I think Prince Harry and Meghan were very keen to put this idea that, yeah, she was the sweet grandma that would approve anything we did. Harry would always talk about the sort of men in grey suits who would keep me from her and this sort of thing. Well, actually, it turns out, you know, she really was an iron fist beneath that velvet glove. And, you know, this was her being angry about something. This is what Robert reports. And this is over the choice of name. And it wasn't just over the choice of name, which I think she may have felt was presumptuous and was, you know, perhaps an attempt to sort of take advantage, really, to sort of make commercial advantage. Remember, they'd already registered the name Lilibet as a domain name for a website, but also it was it was something which just, I think, angered her on many different levels.
I'm going to ask the question for balance, because I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, X, saying things like, you know, in any other walk of life, it's a great compliment. In any other walk of life, you don't need to ask anyone's permission to name your child whatever name you want. Why has this caused such a problem?
And it's a fair question, but I think if they stuck to the name Elizabeth, then it wouldn't have been, because so many of the Queen's female grandchildren and great-grandchildren have Elizabeth as a middle name in her honour. But Lilibet was a really personal, affectionate nickname given to her by her parents. It was used by her grandfather, her husband, and really her closest friends and relatives. So to have something so personal adopted by somebody else, it just feels a little uncomfortable, and I know she was uncomfortable about it.
Then came Sarah Ferguson's diagnosis of another bout of cancer, this time affecting her skin. Here, Rebecca English explains more. Richard Eden reacts to the news, while Richard Kay addresses the persistent rumours that Fergie may remarry her Royal Lodge roommate, Prince Andrew.
So,
okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
she announced at the weekend that she'd been diagnosed with malignant melanoma, which actually is a very serious form of skin cancer, I know, because I've had it in my own family. And it was caught because she was going in for further reconstructive surgery after her breast cancer and her mastectomy. And the dermatologist was really on the button and said, there's some things that I'm not quite happy about, can we get them checked out? And I was told by a friend of hers she found out over the new year that it was cancer.
Stop it.
But she's going to have to go some other investigations to make sure they have got everything out. But I know the doctors are very hopeful they have. So, and she's determined to get back on television screens again, to again use as another person.
From health crises to royal returns, and from controversial photos to the PR disasters for Meghan and Harry, this year has been extraordinary, even by recent royal standards. This is the story of the year so far.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin and I'll be talking you through some of the year's biggest royal talking points and our experts' reactions to them.
Okay.
As always, a reminder to like and subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel, and that way you will never miss another episode. Well, we started the year with a huge double shock on the same day. Before we knew just how serious it was, here's Rebecca English revealing how she heard the news, and Richard Eden and Natasha Livingston reacting to it.
It was a genuine coincidence, and even in palace circles they were saying it was an unfortunate coincidence, but it was really a kind of perfect storm of events. Obviously they wanted with Catherine to get her into hospital and to have her operation and to know it was a success before they announced the news. The King actually only got his diagnosis on Wednesday, and
What the hell?
doctors immediately said, look, you need to scale back on some of your public engagements. And they realised the next day he was holding a big event at Dumfries House and had cabinet and ministers flying up from London, so they were going to have to counsel a lot of people. Yeah. And they've learned, I think, from the experience of the past,
Wait for it.
and as you rightly alluded to, the rumours about the late Queen and Prince Philip would go wild because they didn't want to comment on it. People would start wildly speculating, and they didn't want to get into that sort of territory. So it was like,
Okay.
look, actually, we're going to announce this. We're going to be straight about it, you know, because we have got to counsel so many people. We don't want the rumour mill to start again. But it was, you know, it was unfortunate timing, and even the palace were remarking it was a bit of a, you know, a more dramatic day than they'd entirely wanted it to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we know details about the King's health issue, but we are left with, and we won't speculate because we don't know what exactly is wrong with Catherine, and you know, unless they decide to announce it. But Natasha, it does sound serious. The recovery time is quite long.
Yeah, she's going to be staying in hospital for 10 to 14 days, and then we've been told not to expect her at any royal engagements until potentially after Easter, and that includes any overseas travel. And obviously Rebecca reported before Christmas that there was an expected trip to Rome, which presumably is on hold now. And the Princess of Wales has become a really important figure in the royal family, so it's really feeling that sort of impact of the stripped back monarchy now that she's kind of out of action.
Well, and of course, by default, it rather means that William is out of action.
Yeah, he's going to be looking after the Princess of Wales and also their children, and so he's kind of pushing back some of his engagements. So yeah, it's really going to have a big impact. All of the royal correspondents were invited to the sort of media, I mean, pen sounds a bit grim, but it's a sort of position that they made outside
You know
the
your
hospital.
place, Natasha.
Yes.
Get in that pen.
And it was really so there was a kind of vantage point for kind of photographers and broadcasters and journalists to see the hospital, see any comings and goings, but also mainly for the privacy of the princess, but other people at the hospital, so they were kind of a step back.
Okay.
back. But yeah, so we were all kind of there in the pen when we all got the news about the King, and it really was quite astonishing, really, to get so much news. It really was very dramatic.
It is quite dramatic, isn't it? Because Richard, in your newsletter this week, and a reminder that you can
Stop it.
sign up to that below, you talk about the challenges of losing 2 senior members of the firm, and actually effectively 3 at the moment.
I think for me it just highlights the precarious sort of nature of King Charles's vision of this slimmed down monarchy, which,
Okay.
remember, his vision for the future was the King and Queen Camilla, and then it was Prince William, Catherine, and then Prince Harry and Meghan. Well, they're gone, and now you've got, almost 3 people out of action. And it sort of, for me, emphasises how that vision is a very dangerous one, and personally, I think there's much more strength in the monarchy to have a wider circle of people involved.
The difficulty is, and Princess Anne's been asked about this before, when they said,
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
"Oh, are you going to be stepping up now?" And she said, "How can I step up more than I am? I already do 400 engagements a year, massive commitments. I'm doing everything I can." So,
I mean, remember, we discussed last week how Prince Richard,
What the hell?
the Duke of Gloucester, who's in his 70s,
Yes.
he carried out so many engagements. It was more than Prince William last year. So, people like him carry on doing lots of hard work, but, they're the supporting act.
and to again use this another personal health crisis as a means to encourage other people to get themselves checked out and hopefully save lives as well.
Yeah, I mean, melanoma is one of those sort of silently scary, really malicious
Stop it.
diseases. I hope she's doing well. But Richard, as Rebecca alludes to, it's going to slow down hopes for that media career to take off. But it's also been widely reported that Sarah's been keeping an eye on Prince Andrew, who's had his share of problems.
Well, obviously, Prince Andrew's been going through a difficult time recently. He doesn't have a job anymore, and we've had all the revelations from those court documents in America, so she's been supporting him. At the same time,
Wait for it.
and remember, she's only recently recovered from her cancer treatment, and she's started working very hard. She's become the sort of breadwinner of the family, so to speak, and she's been doing all sorts of TV appearances. You can do it! And she's working with her books and that sort of thing. So it has come at a terrible time for her. But you know what she's like. I think she's already been to a clinic in Austria to convalesce, and I'm sure she'll be kind of back at it before too long. She's one of those people, you just sort of nothing will keep her down.
She's definitely got a just get on with it spirit.
She really has.
Speaking of that, Richard Kay, this leads
Wait for it.
me very nicely to a piece you wrote this week for the Mail's new subscription platform, Mail Plus, that intrigued me greatly. You have a novel solution for the divorce payment.
It's not an original solution. The idea is that maybe
What?
one way out of the Duke and Duchess's current predicament would be for them to remarry, because that would at least give Andrew, I think, some sort of public validation.
Okay.
At least there's someone who is very much standing by him.
Sorry.
It might also deal with the issue over housing. Is he really going to be able to stay on in Royal Lodge if he and Fergie were to become a married couple once again? That might deter some of the enemies within the court who would like to evict him from that property. I mean, as I say, it's not original. We've been down this road many times before, but the fact is they have been together for the best part of 40 years. I think we're coming up next year to the 40th anniversary of when they first met, although they knew each other as children. And despite divorce, despite all
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
the difficulties and the embarrassments that Fergie heaped on the royal family, and indeed Andrew, they have remained together.
Now, would it be, though, a marriage of rekindled love or a marriage of convenience?
Very good question.
That's a very good point. I suspect more of the latter. I mean, I think there is a great deal of affection between the two of them still. Neither of them have found anyone else they want to make their life partner. I think there are various issues, of course, raised there. One thing which I didn't touch on, but which has occurred to me, is if she were to marry and remarry Andrew, would she get her HRH back? I suspect not.
Are you serious?
Wow.
But it was taken away from her when she divorced him.
What are your memories as a young reporter? Because you were at their wedding.
Well, yeah. I wasn't that young, but I was covering the.
Are you
I
a
did cover
vampire,
the
Richard
wedding.
Kane?
Yeah. Seen my picture in the attic. Yes, I remember it being an incredibly hot but very joyful day. I mean, London really was en fête, just as it had been 5 years earlier with Charles and Diana's wedding, but there was something intrinsically different this time, because here was a couple who were manifestly very much in love, and it was one of the reasons why no one has really grasped why they ever split up. But they were in love, clearly. Oh my God! They couldn't keep their hands off one another when they were out together in public, and they seemed a team, a proper team. And by then, tragically, Charles and Diana were no longer really much of a team. And so I think there was an awful lot invested in...
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
...in Andrew and Fergie, and there were great hopes for the future, but sadly they all dissipated within 2 or 3 years.
Do you know what I remember about Andrew and Fergie's wedding? My cat died that night.
Oh.
We were in Australia watching it in the middle of the night live.
Well, I was actually there too, not as a reporter in the Abbey, but
Page boy.
as a child in the
Babe in
crowds
arms.
in the Mall. And
Why am I not surprised?
I was, I'm afraid...
Budding diarist even then, Richard.
I was so short that my memory of the day is using a periscope. So everything I saw of the carriages rushing past was through this little periscope to see
Did you
over
have
the
your little
crowds.
Union Jack hat on?
I may have done. We were there with some friends visiting from Canada. So yeah, no, it was a great day.
I love that. I love that. I need photos. We need next week the montage of Richard Eden at
your little
Andrew and
shorts.
Sarah's wedding. But what do you
Wait for it.
think? You know, we've royal weddings always a boost for the economy, a boost for morale. But what would a royal re-wedding be like? How would that be received?
Well, the mind boggles. But remember,
Almost there.
we've had register office weddings before, of course, with our king. King Charles and Camilla got married at Windsor Register Office, and they had a service of blessing afterwards. So there's no reason why Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, might not have a